The U.S. faces a looming crisis as high interest rates and unchecked government spending are driving up the national debt. Ephraim Graham has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Ephraim?
Andrew, America's debt is growing $1 trillion every 100 days. Economists warn if Congress doesn't take action, it's only going to get worse. CBN's Brody Carter takes a closer look.
U.S. national debt, the money our federal government borrows to cover operating expenses, now stands at more than $34 trillion. If that's not bad enough, the high interest rates and the crushing payments on that debt are spiraling the crisis out of control.
Right now, we're paying about $750 billion per year in interest costs, which again is approximately equal to the amount that the United States spends on national defense, if you can believe it.
Professor Alexander Salter, Ph.D. and economic analyst, says some forecasts expect the interest payments alone to double by 2033 from its current level to $1.4 trillion. The U.S. is set to spend around $870 billion in interest payments this year. That's more than America spends on the Department of Defense and our national security. Salter says the biggest drivers of the growing national debt are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, leaving the federal government required to pay an estimated $200 trillion in future obligations.
This is why we have to understand that military aid to Ukraine or Israel, we can debate those issues on their merits, and we should. But if we're talking 50 billion, 100 million, that is a drop in the bucket in terms of the long-run fiscal trajectory. We're not going to fix things by shaving things off. We need fundamental structural reforms.
Economists agree that the risk to America's credit rating and its ability to raise funds makes debt likely to become one of the biggest threats to our national security because the U.S. wouldn't be able to afford the military resources it will need.
If you need to protect the country in a security sense, you need to be able to do that. If you can't place your bonds, you can't command resources. If you can't command resources, you can't pay for tanks and fighter planes and bombs and all the things that you need to keep the country safe.
And we are paying for it now with these high inflation rates. And sorry to be the messenger of bad news, it is going to get far worse in the coming decades.
Economist Joel Griffith with the Heritage Foundation.
Of course, have a presidential election coming up, and it's very important that we have a candid discussion and debate about what these candidates would do to stop us from going off of the fiscal cliff.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Staying on the topic of federal spending and a potential government shutdown, the House passed 6 spending bills Wednesday, providing more than $450 billion to fund the Departments of Justice, Energy, and Veteran Affairs, among others. It now goes to the Senate for a vote before Friday's deadline. Congress is facing a second deadline, March 22nd, to fund more departments, including Defense, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services.